Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules and joining our webinar today. My name is Ryan Schallenberger, and I'm the marketing manager here at Reveille Software. Brian DeWyer and I will be walking you through our presentation today, focused on the management of multiple ECM platforms, and specifically steps and tips on simplifying this management to minimize costs and maximize productivity. So first, I'm going to give a quick bio on our main presenter, Brian DeWyer, Reveille Software CTO and co-founder. Brian has over 25 years of experience in technology, and he's provided product strategy and technical leadership in his role as Reveille CTO and board member. Some of his previous roles include senior IT leader at Wachovia and process consulting practice leader for IBM Global Services. He has led process change efforts within large organizations, building on content-driven solutions for high-volume transaction processing applications. He is a past board member of the Association of Image and Information Management, or AIM, Industry Association. And Brian graduated from Virginia Tech and holds an MBA from Wake Forest University. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move forward with our agenda. I will be giving a brief overview on just who Reveille Software is, so you all have a background on why we feel that we are uniquely positioned to speak on this topic. Brian will go into the main message of today's presentation. We're going to review any questions and then close up. So if you do have a question to ask a question, please use the Q&A function within your window. If we don't have time to respond to that today, we'll be sure to reply within 24 hours. So who is Reveille? Reveille is a software company. We're headquartered out of Atlanta, Georgia. Our focus for a decade plus has been the enterprise content management space, specifically monitoring and managing content service applications, such as the ones that you see on your screen in that image: Hyland OnBase, IBM FinalNet, OpenText Intelligent Capture, so on and so forth, and providing out-of-the-box visibility in the ways of pre-built tests for each and every one of these environments that we support. That's our specialty. And this has expanded beyond ECM to include RPA as well. And if you see on the right of that screen, this expertise of ours that I just explained, it's trusted by numerous organizations, from large financial services companies to healthcare to manufacturing. And you can imagine that these organizations have large and often complicated ECM environments that require insight. So what's the current landscape in terms of ECM applications and organizations? How did we get here? So I just want to start with this quote on the bottom part of that screen from AIM. The average number of content systems within organizations, it has surged from 3.14 to 4.95, just under 5, in the past 10 years. And percentage-wise, the most significant growth is realized in organizations that are now claiming to have 7 to 10 systems. So I likely don't have to tell many of you this. It's just reinforcing what you already know. It's your reality. And this growth, is what we can see, is a result of a number of factors, including mergers and acquisitions, the tie to legacy applications, and also digital transformation initiatives. And this leads to situations like the one represented in the image that you see. Multiple teams managing multiple ECM environments in silos, and this compounds the effects of issues, costs, productivity, and these are some of the challenges that Brian will be addressing today. So knowing the challenges at hand and the sprawl of all these ECM platforms in these organizations, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brian so he can point us to solutions. So Brian?
Thanks, Ryan, and my welcome to everyone. So as Ryan was describing, with this scenario, and just from my perspective and our perspective, we've seen this movie many times, and I unfortunately has experienced it. So this added complexity when you have multiple ECM platforms that you've inherited or has arisen by business unit initiatives or from normal M&A activity, it dramatically can increase the complexity. And you cross the line where, as we all know, there's distributed and centralization, yin and yangs when you look at IT service delivery, and it makes it difficult to fit in both areas, if you would, because when you've got multiple platforms, different target points, some also are usually at different maturity life cycles, that is, in terms of technology that's used within the platform based on when the platform was acquired and whether it was updated. And also skills, because over time, as we know, people move on, do different things, and you have different levels of in-house expertise, or you have to turn to outside expertise in order to even keep the platform operating at an acceptable service level. So the challenge really comes down to you need to have a pulse on which platform and its components are meeting your business requirements now and the future. They're delivering ROI, because that question will get asked. Obviously, it's a very important question, especially as you move up the management chain. And how do you support it? Is it a platform? Once you decide on a platform, should it be in-house? Should it be a managed service type approach? Or should it be something that's totally not under your control and you're just dealing with it's an input-output scenario? So what we've come up with and discuss working with our clients, and what we've seen to help work this, is first, you've got to prioritize. You need to understand which platforms are, quote, delivering the goods. And part of that's going through these types of reviews. So first, look at where does this ECM platform, the application it's tied to, where is it standing, if you would, within the organization from a disaster recovery DR or business continuity planning aspect. Look at its tier ranking. The higher they are, the more important they are in terms of that business application it's tied to. If you're just doing desktop DR activities and you don't have to actually go through a DR, then that kind of signals that this application doesn't have the standing that other ones do. The second piece, just as important, we typically find is this ECM platform supporting an external application, or is it primarily internal client use? If it's external and there's an issue, there's potentially brand impact, that platform needs to have serious attention, obviously, versus if it's, again, back office operational use. It may be critical to the application itself, but it's not customer facing. That will have a different ranking when we look at things. And then the technology assessment. If it's based on older, for example, let's say 3-tier client server technology, that may be fine, but it makes it more difficult and give you flexibility as more and more ECM environments are cloud native born or moving to the cloud as part of a transition. It also impacts your ability to retain and have the skills in-house if it's a critical platform, because again, most folks would rather work on something that's new, that takes advantage of new technologies and is moving forward, versus something that is more traditional, if you will, in quote, keeping the lights on. Another key factor, of course, is your total cost of ownership. What does it take to run this platform? And that gets into specific supplier discussions, because depending on what the supplier motivations are and what they want you to do, your maintenance can change rather dramatically over time in terms of just software maintenance, and then their ability to provide support. We've seen trends in the industry where signaling can be done in terms of sunsetting a platform by reduced level of supplier support, but more system integrator or managed service provider support, where they actually have more skills in understanding how to operate that platform, and it could be more economic. And then that gets to the skills mapping in terms of who do you want in-house and what skills are required to operate this ECM platform. So the Once you have that, and you can do it for each of these 7 to 10 platforms that you have, it's not a difficult thing. Just using we typically see a spreadsheet used to do this, and do high, medium, and low. And then if there's any specific peculiarities or things you want to note about a platform, then you can associate that with it. And then you want to rank them based on that information that you put together. You can then associate a numeric value with those, and then you can do some mapping against the strategic value of the application itself. So once you have your ECM platforms ranked, you can then, as I said, look at the strategic positioning of the application. Is this a business area that's growing? Is it maintaining? Or is it being looked for potentially divesting? Because, if you select your prime ECM management platform and it is in a business area that's going to be divesting, that probably may not be the long-term the right decision. So to do this correctly, just a tip, you need to have a perspective outside of your ECM environment. And this is where the conversations with the business areas are very, very important in terms of how they're viewing things. So then you can come up with an indicator for each one of these platforms. Is it core? Do you want to maintain it? Or is it something you want to migrate off of into a core platform? You want to look at the lifecycle plan, because we've also seen where core, maintain, and migrate, that changes over time. So you may have a 3 or a 4 or 5 year outlook, and some that become maintain eventually go to migrate or go into core, and that reduces the number of your platforms too. It's very critical that you work closely with your peers or above in the business unit to, again, understand the strategic value of the business application that the ECM is tied to. And because when you talk to folks on what you like to go forward with, you're gonna have to sell it together. You've got to have champions on that side. This isn't just an IT-driven initiative. This is a business decision, and this reduces our risk, reduces our complexity, and makes us more adaptable and flexible moving forward and using ECM through our strategic initiatives. The other one you want to understand for each platform, especially the core ones or the maintain, obviously, is define your customer experience. This is where the business area can help too. So what are their expectations? What are their service level baselines? You may not have a stated SLA. SLAs can be viewed positive or negative. We've seen that, but you need to have it. There's an emotional SLA, I like to call it, an expectation. You need to understand what that is from their perspective, from their user community. You need to look at the ticket analytics. What kinds of tickets or issues are they having against this application that's using the platform? What are the service levels? Are they more generating how to, or are they performance system level issues? Are they access related? That's very helpful to get a baseline on how it's being used and how it's being perceived. And then another tool we've seen used, it's very easy to do typically, especially for those, if you've got SharePoint, just create a quick survey, get some feedback, and do it in a manner that's takes 5 minutes, and it's very interesting to see some of the answers you will get back, and try to get, make it no more than 5 questions. Things like, are you happy with the application experience? What things could be improved? How long you've been using it? Did you go through formal training, et cetera, et cetera? Because training is another avenue. We've had folks sit or review the onboarding training, because if you look at the level of training that's required to use an application, it's a very good indicator on how complex it is, how custom it is, and the level of product support you're going to need to provide. So that definitely feeds into the customer experience on what they're going to have to need to do, what they need to do in order to use it effectively. And then what we like to call control transparency is what information does the customer want or need in order to be comfortable that they're getting good service, they're having a good experience. Now, this could be as simple as, I want to know that everything's green, so I go somewhere and everything that you're responsible for that is key to my application is good. Or some may say, I like to know details of this kind of operating metric information as it relates to my application. Or I want to know what my users are doing in terms of these documents in this repository. All that's up for discussion. Now, there are obviously lower level things around the platform and its stack that probably doesn't make sense to expose. That's the reason for using the word controlled. But the level of communication and the willingness to share in both directions can help you go forward as you again try to sell the platform, ECM platform optimization to senior management, because you'll have the buy-in with the information you're sharing. And then the employee experience. You've heard about total experience, was a combination of the customer experience or stakeholder experience, and then the employees that have to operate these ECM environments. It's just as critical. So they need to know what are their expectations in terms of how the operation of it and the policies around it. That these are a set of guidelines. So if you onboard someone new to use this ECM platform, they're building a new application, they're using a common set of APIs. They want to understand what the recovery time objectives are, the recovery points are, et cetera, et cetera. Those need to be documented. And we're not talking about 100 pages of methodology. It's just a set of guidelines that state that these are how we operate and process the data that goes into ECM. And these are service levels we strive to attain, et cetera, et cetera. And with this, then they, instead of having to go find things and get a business analyst involved whenever there's a need for operating level information, it's at your fingertips and they can just pull it up and see it right away. So the baseline metrics is highlighting there. It's not only the operational side, so they can speak to the business area and the IT area, but it's the business impact, those type metrics that, for example, if I'm running a high volume document capture environment and I have certain processes that we know they have very short SLAs in terms of getting the batch done, you need to understand what they'll be able to say, yes, this is what's, just like they would want to understand, to know what that means. So if batches are not being processed in a timely manner, the downstream impact, what business application is impacted. You want to drive to be able to speak the metrics in their language, which makes their understanding and trust with what you're providing in the ECM platform much more valuable. And of course, the last piece, if I'm in an ECM platform operations support area, the last thing I want to do is, during the Super Bowl, get a text page to say this service or process has an issue, it needs to be looked at. Whereas with automation, that could be automatically handled or acknowledged with a simple click, and life goes on the way you want it. So mundane, repetitive, low value things, those can be removed in a very straightforward manner now, and addresses well-being and quality of life for the employee that's in the ECM platform area. So along that theme, as Ryan mentioned, you look at simplify. When I talked about automate, and you also want to connect the data that you have with other applications within the organization. So as you gain visibility, you're gaining information that can be shared around the repository capture, archive, and RPA as an example, into other processes, such as your incident management, your problem management, change management, notifications, et cetera, et cetera. And that involves the other key folks in IT ops that need to be aware of how to manage the ECM platform itself. And that leads to the second item there is, you clearly define who owns the ECM platform. Many times we've seen that the ownership is cloudy at best. There needs to be a group that owns it, that's responsible for it. And when we say owns it, they're responsible for the tactical and strategic. That is, it's not abdicated to some other third party or other business area. The blueprints are maintained, and they make the decisions of, is this platform in or out? They're the ones that make the recommendation. Not only we also say you own it, you understand what is the ROI for that platform. Because as I said, moving up in the higher levels of organization, that should be the first or second question that's asked about what is the return this is providing versus looking at other alternatives. So when you automate and can gather information on a consistent basis, you can provide that kind of visibility upwards in the management change. And then for your employees, especially, the productivity downwards, because they don't have to go find it. So you're looking for having for each platform ECM metrics with context that allows them to be productive, and then also allows you to continually communicate the value of the ECM platform with senior management. We commonly see also as part of this, when you get down to, these are our key platforms, some of them may be appropriate just to use managed service providers, especially if you're in a maintain mode, because of the scope of the application, the strategic importance, but you don't see growing on that platform. That sounds like a perfect opportunity for MSP, where someone manages it for you, but still provides you this visibility. The last piece is, once you have this analysis done, then it's a great opportunity to bring in someone you consider a trusted advisor to review it. Get some outside industry thoughts. This doesn't need to be a large, protracted consulting engagement. This is, okay, we put together some information. I'd like to have you review it, have a couple sessions to discuss and get their feedback and thought, because obviously they can bring an industry perspective. MSPs can sometimes serve this role, but then there are also, and we're aware of folks we're happy to discuss and suggest that can provide it in a more broad aspect too. So where can Reveille help fit with some of this? As you see here, even beyond the need for monitoring and managing the ECM platform and the users, is a need to communicate this information in a way that can feed an ECM platform analysis. So Reveille has these solution packs, and you can see the names of them here, but they can help address and answer for each platform in place, what are our baselines? What are the service levels we're really delivering? What capacity, what resource consumption is it using? Are there areas where we can automate, that is, reduce the impact to our employees in terms of having to clear bottlenecks? And can we integrate into those other IT processes and leverage them for notifications, incident management, problem management, et cetera? And then on the user side, answering the questions of who's really using it, what are their performance expectations? Are we over provisioning licenses? And then have we closed the gaps in terms of understanding who potentially could be doing some things we don't want to be doing in terms of accessing the platform? All that fits into, after you've selected your platforms, for providing ongoing visibility, the deep instrumentation, and making it manageable in an automated manner. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Ryan to see if we have any questions.
Great, thanks, Brian. Yeah, we have a few minutes here to review some questions that we have to go over. Question number one is, where can I learn from other organizations on who has taken this approach for ECM management?
So, good question. One of the things, the other hints we could give on that is, you need to you need to come up with a one-page plan, if you will. And that's very difficult. We all know that. But you need to take the Amazon approach, come up with a one-page plan that summarizes how you want to manage your ECM platforms going forward. And it really goes through what we just discussed. But what it will focus on, it will force you to focus and communicate in a very clear manner upwards. And it will also, I would get at the same time, when you put that plan together, involve your business peers. So if I'm going to an EVP or above, as you well know, they don't have time to dig into a 10-page analysis. It needs more than, quote, a 2-paragraph executive summary, but it needs to have the heft for them to pay attention to and realize these are the financial implications of doing this and how it's going to make us better, reduce our risk, and most importantly, be more flexible in terms of how we can provide better customer experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. You kind of sprinkled this in throughout, but more specifically, can you talk about, from this next question, who needs to get involved for this kind of review?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, this is not a team of 30. This is maybe a team of 4 or 5. It needs to be led by the members of the team would be typically an architect, a business unit person, someone production support, and then a project manager to help drive the initiative. And then most importantly, an executive sponsor that crosses the organization. So you can have steering committee or sponsor meetings. And if you've got a bottleneck, let's say, a certain business area doesn't necessarily want to participate because, quote, it's their platform, you need someone that can navigate those organizational challenges and get the support to make sure you can get their feedback. So the roles change, during the technical assessment phase, architect's going to be more important. During the business unit impact phase, that's going to be the business analyst, project manager, obviously for doing all those, keeping the project on track and gathering the information. And then the management lead in terms of, because you are going to be talking to suppliers and helping to look at the business impacts, the skills impact, et cetera, et cetera. So those are I would say, the typical components. And from a time frame, if you've got 7 to 10 platforms, realistically, this is probably a quarter-like project, calendar time, realistically. If you can do better than that, that's awesome, obviously. But from a calendar, I'd say it's typically a quarter. And then your deliverables out of this are the one-page senior management business plan, and then, of course, the analysis that you've done underneath with the spreadsheets and your rankings, and any project notes that, of course, you've all kept within your ECM environment for archive purposes.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Just because we're coming up on time here, I'll close the Q&A session at this moment. And if you did happen to ask a question, thank you so much for asking a question. If we didn't get time to respond to it right now, we'll make sure to contact you directly after this session. So to wrap up, I know we're coming close on time or a little over. I'll point everyone to some further resources. Of course, there is our website where we have content pieces on this exact topic, along with information that dives deep onto Reveille and our monitoring and management for ECM platforms. I'll also offer myself as a resource. You can see my email is on the screen right now. So please reach out with any questions that you may have, or if you'd like to set up a conversation, we'd be more than happy to do so. So with that, we'd both like to thank everyone for joining us, taking the time out of your busy schedules today. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.